Part 3 of our 2026 100-question mega pack to get you ready for that real estate examination in every state, everywhere, all the time, all over the place. These questions are going to be solid to get you ready for those exams. Salespersons, brokers, let's go. Coming up next, Part 3, question number 51 through 75. We'll see ya at the end of this. Question number 51. Evan, a property manager, is told a family of 7 wants to rent a 2-bedroom unit. Which action is correct? Letter A, he must rent to them under fair housing law. Letter B, he can deny them if it violates occupancy codes. Letter C, he must deny them based on familial status. Letter D, he must offer them another property. And the answer? Letter B, he can deny them if it violates occupancy codes. And so the occupancy code question is very normal and standard across the United States. And it is one of those items that exam writers love to write about because it's an outlier. It makes people go, he's discriminating against a family with children. That's discrimination, and they're kind of trained that way when you're taking these real estate courses. But then you got to go, what are the fine points? What are the exclusions? What are the carve-outs? And now, state sanitary code is always, and occupancy codes are always going to take precedence and priority over the familial status. So if the unit is too small because of sanitation or occupancy code in this particular example, then the property manager is in their right to deny them that unit. And nothing further was written. So you don't need to interpret any more than that. And this is a great question to start us off, and we'll see you in the next one. Question number 52. Which of the following best describes a chattel mortgage? Letter A, a mortgage secured by both real and personal property. Letter B, a mortgage secured by a borrower's principal residence. Letter C, a mortgage that secures only personal property. Letter D, a government-backed loan product. And the answer? Letter C, a mortgage that secures only personal property. So the phrase chattel is personal property. So personal property is also known as chattel. And you want to make that connection for this exam? Absolutely on there. Another way that you can say personal property is personal T. So personal T, personal property, or chattel. And you want to know chattel deals with personal property. And you want to know that for sure. A chattel mortgage is a high probability. We'll see you in the next one. Question number 53. A lender advertises low monthly payments, no mention of APR. This is a violation of letter A, ECOA. Letter B, TILA. Letter C, RESPA. Letter D, TRID. And the answer? Letter B, TILA. And TILA, by the way, stands for the Truth in Lending Act, also implemented under something known as Regulation Z. So look out for things like Reg Z. They might call it that. They might call it TILA. They might call it the Truth in Lending Act. And that all of them are the same thing for this test purpose, just, so you understand. And, there is one thing here. I just will point that out that there, low monthly payments, it should have been end quote there. I do apologize. It looks like there was just a minor typo there. But anytime there is no mention of the phrase APR, and you need to know what APR is. APR is annual percentage rate. The annual percentage rate is the cost of financing while you roll in all of the other costs associated with that particular lender. So look it up. You're going to see there. APR is one of those things that you want to know for this examination. You want to know what it stands for, the annual percentage rate. You want to know what federal law regulates it, Truth in Lending Act. And you want to know if you do not disclose the APR in an advertisement, that advertisement is in violation of the APR. As a matter of fact, if you look at it from another perspective, the only thing that can stand alone in an advertisement, if it's just this, is the APR. So if you say 30-year fixed rate mortgages, 6.123 APR, you are golden. So the APR is critical in all advertisements when it comes down to financial in nature that are covered under the Truth in Lending Act, and mortgages are. Question number 54. What does the habendum clause in a deed define? Letter A, any encumbrances. Letter B, the consideration being paid. Letter C, the duration and extent of ownership rights. Letter D, the chain of title. And the answer? Letter C, the duration and extent of ownership rights. So, habendum clause in a deed. The habendum clause is actually broken down into the to have and to hold. To have and to hold. And sort of that's what habendum will be loosely translated into, so to have and to hold. And sort of how will this party to have and to hold this particular property? So the habendum clause will define the duration and the extent of ownership. So it could say to have and to hold in fee simple absolute. Which means that it's this indefinite period of holding in fee simple absolute, the highest interest recognized. So the habendum clause casts a light, and the phrases coming immediately after the habendum clause are being defined as the duration and the extent of ownership. We'll see you in the next one. Question number 55. Joseph agrees to buy Sylvia's house if he can sell his own within 60 days. This is an example of letter A, estoppel certificate. Letter B, void contract. Letter C, contingency clause. Letter D, option contract. And the answer? Letter C, contingency clause. So what we're looking at here is we're looking at, hey, I will buy your house, Sylvia. However, I need some time to be able to sell my house. I can't buy your house if I can't sell my house. So my purchasing your home is contingent upon me selling my house. So this is called a property sale contingency. And in this question, they just simply called it a contingency clause because it is an additional provision that needs to happen before the contract is fully enforceable. And so you want to know this. So you're going to find this in contracts in your books, wherever you're studying, and you're looking for the different types. Many times you'll see the mortgage contingency, the property sale contingency, and they're just using the contingency clause in this particular question. So it's the same kind of application in terms of question. And there could be a sale clause, there could be a property inspection clause. So there's various covenants and clauses, and you want to know and be familiar with some of these. This is contracts for sure. And remember, contracts happens to make up the majority of questions on all real estate exams across the United States. So look at your exam outlines and you're going to see that. And you want to study these for sure. And sometimes test writers might use a simple thing like this. Now, an option contract wouldn't be that unless it said the grantee reserves the right to do something. A void contract, they're fishing around contracts, and it's not an estoppel certificate, which you will see later. Look to finance, and you'll see more about estoppel and finance. So we have these things that are all real. However, contingency clause is the best answer for this question. Question number 56. Which lease allows the tenant to pay a fixed rent plus property expenses? Letter A, gross lease. Letter B, percentage lease. Letter C, net lease. Letter D, sublease. And the answer? Letter C, the net lease. So, gross leases, percentage leases, net leases, and subleases are all legitimate things. So this you're going to find obviously in the leasing sections of your books. So you want to refer to these. You want to know the definition of gross lease, percentage lease, net lease, and you want to know what a sublease is. Sometimes they call subleases sandwich leases, by the way. lease. Okay. Just so you know, sometimes they'll refer to them as that. The older school books will tend to show these off. Which lease allows the tenant to pay a fixed rent and any and all expenses. So if we're paying additional expenses plus a fixed rent, that is a net lease. A gross lease is a flat amount. So if it just said fixed rent and no other expenses, then that's a gross lease. And a net lease is you're paying some type of rent and then in addition to that, other property expenses. And so when you see that, that's the telltale. This is a net lease. Now, if it said something like all property expenses, like there was the phrase all, then it would be a triple net lease. That could be something that you'll see on an exam as well. Triple net or net. And don't forget that they many times throw in the phrase net listing as one of these answers because a net listing is a thing that you learned inside of your listing agreements and agency, those chapters, and it's quite different. Net leases versus net listings. In this particular example, they used net lease. So be careful for that. Be on guard. We'll see you in the next one. If you're looking to pass your real estate exam in as little as 2 days, make sure to check out my best-selling 48-hour study plan. This simple 2-day schedule takes a few hours each day. So if you're taking the real estate exam this week, then this is absolutely the product for you. And guess what? It's on sale right now. I'll drop a link
in the description below. Yeah!
Question number 57. A buyer secures a $320,000 loan at 6% interest. What is the first month's interest payment? Letter A, $2,000. Letter B, $1,600. Letter C, $1,920. Letter D, $1,280. And the answer? Letter B, $1,600. Okay, so this is a simple interest calculation. My friends that are a little nervous about math, don't be. There's not a tremendous amount of math on these examinations. Some states are a little bit different than other ones, but there's not a whole lot. But take questions like this and try to nail these. These aren't that hard. This is a pretty simple basic calculation. So to calculate simple interest, it's simply the loan amount times the interest rate divided by 12. Divided by 12. All right, so like for example here, this was $320,000 times 6%. Now, some of y'all might be a little nervous. How do I do that? 6% is easy. All you got to do is 0.06. All right, so you're going to multiply this out. And if you do that, you'll get $19,200. All right, that's for the whole year. That's the interest, the simple interest for the whole year. Now, if you simply divide this by 12, then you'll get $1,600. All right, so pretty easy. So you're just going to rewatch this a few times to get your simple interest calculations. They might not do simple interest. They might do amortization. They might want you to do that. They might make you read an amortization table. So there's going to be the mortgage calculation question. It's going to be on there. So don't fret. But if you get a simple interest one like this, and it's just saying, what is the first month's interest payment? They're not even talking about the principal balance. Then you're good to go. This is simple interest. And that's it. It's pretty straightforward. Loan amount times the interest rate divided by 12. Question number 58. Which of the following liens is always paid first in foreclosure? Letter A, first mortgage. Letter B, mechanic's lien. Letter C, property tax lien. Letter D, IRS lien. And the answer? Letter C, property tax liens. So property tax liens are super priority liens. And this is an interesting question because there's the IRS lien, and the IRS lien takes pretty high priority. And so I think as I'm reading this question, what I would do is I could see that there's an argument for C or D. Some people are going to pick A, first mortgages, because some people might forget about the property taxes and stuff. This whole thing you'll learn under the priority of liens. Priority of liens. So look at that up in your books or materials that you're studying, wherever you're studying. And so I still think C is the answer. Still, it's the most correct answer that I would pick if I were taking this test. And I would say property tax liens will take super lien status. And you want to make sure you know that. But this other creditor here is a super creditor as well. Now, mechanics liens is order of rights in time. Mechanics liens, if they are perfected after the first mortgage, then they take second priority. And so there you go. First mortgage always gets paid. However, during a foreclosure, any super lien candidates. So if, let's say there is a foreclosure, then the property tax lien and the IRS will get paid before the first mortgage holder gets paid. So this is why they want to make sure when they're loaning money that they do a title search to make sure that there's no liens on the property that aren't properly discharged, so that they will have first rate priority. Question number 59. Rob is a broker supervising 5 new licensees. Which is part of his supervisory responsibilities? Letter A, guaranteeing client funds with personal savings. Letter B, reviewing all transaction files for compliance. Letter C, providing advertising templates. Letter D, setting commission rates with competing firms. And the answer? Letter B, reviewing all transaction files for compliance. And so, again, this is supervisory responsibility. So what does the broker have to do as they're overseeing different salespersons or new licensees? And if you're guaranteeing client funds with personal savings, that's just an incorrect statement. With personal savings, that's not true. Providing advertising templates, that's really not a part of the supervisory responsibilities, although advertising templates would be very helpful. Setting commission rates with competing firms, that's actually just a violation of antitrust law. That's actually just incorrect. And so if you were looking at it from in terms of the answers, I would pick B all day long, just from like looking at this and going, what's the most correct statement? And C is a little bit of a, it's just kind of an open-ended thing here. So letter B, reviewing all transactions. Now, you do want to know roles and responsibilities of supervisory agents. You're going to find this inside of the brokerage sections. If not, you'll find it inside of the agency sections of your materials. So do check those out. You do want to have some confidence when it comes down to this. My broker candidate friends that are studying this are going to want to make sure you know your roles of supervisory authority when it comes down to brokerage and overseeing licensees. Question number 60. Which process allows a city to legally expand its boundaries into nearby land? Letter A, annexation. Letter B, escheat. Letter C, dedication. Letter D, adverse possession. And the answer? Letter A, annexation. So all of these are actual vocab phrases. Annexation is a process allowing, let's say in this particular example, a city to legally expand its boundaries into nearby land. And so the other one that's not in here is eminent domain. If that land is within the city's jurisdiction, and it would benefit society over the individual, depending on how it's held and title or whatnot. And so there's that eminent domain piece or condemnation. And so we know that exists, but that's not one of the choices. And so we have escheat, which is when somebody dies without a will and no heirs, and the government takes the land, and it doesn't say anything about people dying, no will, etc. Dedication, so example, a developer could dedicate land to a government for various reasons, various uses like roadways, etc. Dedication. And then adverse possession is openly, notoriously, continuously in a hostile manner occupying another person's land for a period of time as prescribed by that state's law. And so that isn't what's going on here. They would use those buzz phrases if this were adverse possession. So you want to know that this is annexation. Question number 61. Which of the following is not required in a valid real estate contract? Letter A, notarization. Letter B, mutual agreement. Letter C, consideration. Letter D, legal purpose. And the answer? Letter A, notarization. So we're looking for requirements for a valid contract. You're going to find these in your real estate contract sections. You want to know the requirements for a valid contract. And you want to know void, voidable, and valid contracts. And so these other three, B, C, and D, are all requirements in order to have a valid contract. Mutual agreement. There has to be an offer and an acceptance of that offer, a meeting of the minds. There has to be consideration or something of value, and they have to be for some legal purpose. There also has to be legal capacity. And then so there's all of those little nuggets like, a minor entering into a contract with a person of majority's age would be voidable by the minor or the legally incompetent person, etc. So you want to study these for sure. These are popular. This is contracts, again, the biggest section across the United States when it comes to these real estate exams, broker and salespersons. You're going to want to know these for sure. Question number 62. Which law requires lenders to provide borrowers with a loan estimate and closing disclosure? Letter A, TILA. Letter B, TRID. Letter C, ECOA. Letter D, RESPA. And the answer? Letter B, TRID. TRID stands for the TILA RESPA Integrated Disclosure Rule. And you want to know this. Now, the TRID rule requires that lenders provide borrowers with two documents, one called the loan estimate, within 3 days of application of a loan. When you're applying for a loan within 3 days, it's the estimated closing costs that the borrower will incur when they're purchasing property. And the closing disclosure, which is the final numbers, which is given to the consumer 3 days prior to consummation or the closing. Those could be two different dates, by the way. And so you want to know that. TILA is an actual thing, stands for the Truth in Lending Act. TRID is the TILA RESPA Integrated Disclosure Rule. ECOA is real. It's the Equal Credit Opportunity Act. And RESPA stands for the Real Estate Settlement Procedures Act. Y'all want to know all of these federal laws. You want to know for sure what these little short forms are compared to the long forms. Some have regulations like Regulation Z for TILA, and ECOA is Regulation B. So you want to know these. RESPA is Regulation X. So you want to be familiar with these and just get like 1 or 2 bullet points. That would be my advice. If you can just remember or boil it down to like 1 or 2 things, you're going to be much better off on these types of examinations. Again, the finance exams have a lot more depth with these laws, but with these and the real estate exams, you should be good to go. Loan estimate, closing disclosure, all day is TRID, the TILA RESPA Integrated Disclosure Rule. Question number 63. A store has operated in a residential area for 40 years. A new zoning ordinance prohibits commercial use. The store may continue under letter A, nonconforming use. Letter B, spot zoning. Letter C, variance. Letter D, dedication. And the answer? Letter A, nonconforming use. So these are all legit things. Nonconforming use, spot zoning, and variances are all things that are kind of similar. You're going to see these in the section that kind of deals with policing powers. You might see them under land use controls, those types of topics. You want to know zoning, you want to know non-conforming use, you want to know variances, spot zoning, which is, we're trying to get one specific location changed in zoning. And a dedication is where a developer, for example, might dedicate land. So this is definitely textbook example of what non-conforming use would be. And a non-conforming use would be allowed to continue under certain conditions. So you want to know that this is an example of non-conforming use. Question 64. What is equity in a home? Letter A, loan balance minus purchase price. Letter B, market value minus loan balance. Letter C, assessed value minus tax liability. Letter D, appraised value minus assessed value. And the answer? Letter B, market value minus the loan balance. So equity is a very simple equation. It's whatever the valuation of the asset is minus whatever you owe on the asset. The difference is equity. So you want to know this, very basic, but wouldn't be shocked if you came across something like this on an exam. Question 65. Which action would constitute steering? Letter A, convincing owners to sell because of racial changes. Letter B, charging higher rates in minority neighborhoods. Letter C, showing buyers homes only in neighborhoods matching their ethnicity. Letter D, declining to show homes to investors. And the answer? Letter C, showing buyers homes only in neighborhoods matching their ethnicities. Okay, so this is a good question in terms of the answers are all reasonable when you're looking at stuff. And so there's something bad going on in all of these answers, and these happen quite a bit. So you want to watch for questions like this. This is a hard one. My suggestion always with these types of questions is read the answers first and then read the question. So if you can train yourself to do that under certain conditions, you're almost able to filter a little bit better than when you're sort of influenced by the question. So the convincing, letter A, owners to sell because of racial changes is block busting. So the question is asking us about steering. This is block busting. So it's an illegal practice. Letter B, charging higher rates in minority neighborhoods. And so this would be a violation of the Community Redevelopment Acts. And when you sort of see those types of things, these are clearly things like redlining. Charging higher interest rates, charging higher premiums, those types of things. This is redlining. And then showing buyers homes only in neighborhoods matching their ethnicity, that is steering. So that is a textbook definition of steering. And then declining to show homes to investors, that one, isn't that bad. I only do, owner-occupied residential. That's fine if you don't really want to, specialize in investment properties, and that's all good. But the first three are defined as discriminatory practices. So block busting, redlining, and then letter C is steering. This is a really nice use of multiple different things that are not correct to do. The student is going to be like, man, which one do I pick? And you just want to know your different definitions. As a matter of fact, you want to know block busting, the definition, redlining, the definition, and steering. This is a good one. Question number 66. Which of the following best describes constructive notice? Letter A, posting a sign on the property. Letter B, written notification delivered by certified mail. Letter C, verbal disclosure between parties. Letter D, the notice created by recording a document in public records. And the answer? Letter D, the notice created by recording a document in public records. So there is constructive notice and there is something called actual notice. And you're going to see these in the title sections of your books. So closings, titles, that kind of stuff, look for those phrases. Actual notice and constructive notice. You want to know the definition of the two. And in constructive notice, this is a pretty good definition. It's notice created by recording the documents. So when you actually place these documents into public records, could be a registry of deeds, something like that, then you are giving constructive notice. When the documents actually exist in public records, that's actual notice. Actual notice has been given because they are now in the public domain for the public to be able to determine. So you want to know that what is the difference between actual notice and constructive notice, and this is a pretty good question in terms of that. Question number 67.
67.
Question number 67. A buyer purchases a $500,000 home with a 20% down payment. The lender charges 1 point. What is the cost of the point? Letter A, $3,000. Letter B, $6,000. Letter C, $5,000. Letter D, $4,000. And the answer? Letter D, $4,000. Okay, so this is a straight up figuring out what 1 point is. So the lender charges 1 point. For those that don't know, 1 point is the same as saying 1%, that's the percent sign, of the loan. So this is all based off of the loan amount. Well, if this person purchases the property for $500,000, they didn't borrow $500,000. They put down 20%. So we have to figure out, well, what is 20% of $500,000, and then eliminate that from the purchase price. Another way we can do that is we can say, well, what is 80% of $500,000? So we could go about it that way. And if we do 80% of $500,000, so we can do 500 grand multiplied by 0.80, and that's going to give you $400,000. Well, that's the loan amount. And so then we need to figure out what's 1% of $400,000, and the answer is $4,000. So what I would do here is I would just work on figuring out, well, what's a point, what's a discount point, and how to basically calculate them. The tricks are always, how much did they put down? They'll give you a number, that's the purchase price, and you're going to have to figure out what the loan amount is based off of a couple of variables. And then once you do that, you're good to go. Question number 68. Which deed transfers any interest a grantor may have with no warranties? Letter A, quitclaim deed. Letter B, general warranty deed. Letter C, bargain and sale deed. Letter D, special warranty deed. And the answer? Letter A, quitclaim deed. So this is just straight up, what is a quitclaim deed? General warranty, bargain and sale, and special warranty deeds are all deeds. As a matter of fact, this list is the 4 deeds you want to know for your examination. So I would study these and get definitions under your fingertips. The general warranty deed offers the most protection to the buyer. And remember, the buyer is the grantee and the grantor is the seller. All right, so the grantor is the seller, the grantee is the buyer. And a quitclaim deed is basically transferring any interest that the seller has with no promises or assurances. This we typically use to fix clouds on the title. And that's an actual phrase, fixing the clouds on title. General warranty deed and then the special warranty deed are the 2 general deed of conveyances. And then the bargain and sale deed, we also have no promises, no covenants, no warranties whatsoever is bargain and sale. So you often see these with real estate owned by the bank. And they'll convey that. So you want to check with your local state, figure out what type of deed they use to convey, generally speaking. In my state, it's the special warranty deed. In other states, it's the general warranty deed. And then we do quitclaim deeds when we're trying to fix little clouds on title from spouse to husband and wife or spouse and spouse. And when we're fixing things from like a, tenancy in common to a joint tenancy, however we're titling, we will many times use the quitclaim deed to do that. Question number 69. Sylvia signs an offer that includes the seller paying $8,000 towards closing costs. At signing, this becomes letter A, counter offer. Letter B, unilateral contract. Letter C, valid contract. Letter D, executed contract. And the answer? Letter C, a valid contract. So this is a contract style question. And they're saying Sylvia, who is officially the buyer, signs an offer that includes the seller paying some dollar amount towards closing costs. Okay. So at signing this, when Sylvia, the buyer, signs this and the seller is paying this $8,000 towards closing costs, then from what we know about this question, what we can extract, then we know that at this point on the surface, it's a valid contract. And we don't know much more. It's not a unilateral contract because there's 2 promises happening here. Sylvia is agreeing to buy, promise number one, and the seller is agreeing to also contribute towards $8,000 of closing costs. That's not unilateral. A counter offer, well, we don't know if it said further, Sylvia rejected the original agreement and then wanted to make sure there was $8,000 applied, then that would be a counter offer or counter proposal. So A is also out. And an executed contract is, well, this is technically an executed contract in the sense that, both parties have signed. It doesn't quite say that the seller has signed the agreement. So the seller could have offered $8,000 in closing concessions. Sylvia now signs this, and now the seller needs to sign their portion. That could also be a scenario. It could have been a counteroffer. So we can't pick executed contract just yet because we don't have enough information. What we know based off of what is being said to us in these two sentences is that we have seemingly a valid contract. So in my opinion, I would have picked letter C, valid contract, with the amount of content that's being offered in this particular question. Question number 70. Which government right allows ownership of property to revert to the state when someone dies without a will or heirs? Letter A, police power. Letter B, eminent domain. Letter C, escheat. Letter D, condemnation. And the answer? Letter C, escheat. Okay, so all of these are things: policing power, eminent domain, escheat, and condemnation. And so condemnation and eminent domain are sort of go together. And whenever you see these, you want to know the definition and the differences between condemnation and eminent domain. Eminent domain is the right. Condemnation is the process of eminent domain. Policing powers and then escheat. This is textbook definition. Which government right? These are government rights. Police power, eminent domain. Escheat, condemnation is a subset of eminent domain. And the telltale here is when someone dies without a will or heirs. And that is escheat. Question number 71. Which federal law prohibits lender discrimination based on source of income, age, or marital status? Letter A, TRID. Letter B, ECOA. Letter C, Fair Housing Act. Letter D, RESPA. And the answer? Letter B, the ECOA, or the Equal Credit Opportunity Act. So we are going to need to know a little bit of all of these. The two with discrimination here are letter B and letter C. The Equal Credit Opportunity Act, also implemented under regulation, Reg B. I'm going to think of B for bigot. A bigot is someone that discriminates. Reg B and ECOA. Now, we do want to know the protected classes, and there are similarities and differences. So with the Fair Housing Act, it's race, color, religion, RN for religion, national origin, sex, familial status, and disability. And with the ECOA, there are similarities here. With ECOA, it's race, color, religion, national origin, and sex. So the first five are the same. And then ECOA also covers age, marital status, and the receipt of public assistance recipiency. And, you can break that down to income. So the idea here is you want to know the federal protected classes. This is going to serve you well. Do study these. TRID is something for sure. That deals with loan estimates, and the closing disclosure. RESPA is the Real Estate Settlement Procedures Act. If this question were talking about settlement procedures, etc., that would be RESPA, or the TRID would be dealing with the loan estimate and the closing disclosure. And then we have these anti-discrimination style laws, and you want to know the differences. And you're going to see these on exam, so you better study them. Question number 72. What is the purpose of a quiet title suit? Letter A, to create an easement by necessity. Letter B, to establish clear ownership when disputes exist. Letter C, to evict a tenant who has overstayed. Letter D, to resolve zoning issues. And the answer? Letter B, to establish clear ownership when disputes exist. So we want to know various vocab phrases, one of which is the suit to quiet title. You're going to find this in the title sections of your coursework, title, closings, those types of things. Chain of title, suit to quiet title, constructive notice, actual notice. These are all phrases that you're going to want to know for sure. The process, the abstract or the abstract of title, these all are things that you will typically see. And so what is the purpose of a quiet title suit? Is to establish clear ownership when disputes do exist. And many times we use the quitclaim deed to help us clear clouds on title. Question number 73. Gino buys a home for $250,000. He finances 90% with an FHA loan. If the lender charges 2 discount points, what is the cost? Letter A, $4,500. Letter B, $5,000. Letter C, $5,400. Letter D, $6,000. And the answer? Letter A, $4,500. So here, again, very similar to a previous question that we looked at earlier, we have a purchase price. So they buy a home for this, but they only finance up to 90%. Now, there's 2 ways we can do this. In other words, we can take 90% of $250,000, and then we can figure out the finance charges. So if we were to simply do that, it would just be $250,000 times 0.90. That's going to give us the grand total of $225,000. And then we're going to take 2 points, which is 225 times 0.02. And that's going to give us $4,500. And so knowing what a discount point is now, a discount point is the same as any other points. So a point is a point is a point, and any point is 1% of the loan amount, whether it be a discount point or whether it be just a regular standard origination fee. So you want to know those, and that's it. These are pretty standard, and you see these peppered all over real estate exams in every state. Question number 74. Which appraisal principle is based on the idea that a property's value is influenced by surrounding properties, either by raising or lowering it? Letter A, progression and regression. Letter B, substitution. Letter C, contribution. Letter D, highest and best use. And the answer? Letter A, progression and regression. So there are several economic principles of value. You will find these in your valuation sections. So do check there. Valuations, appraisals, whatever it could be like listed in a couple of different ways. But nonetheless, in the basic sections, you're going to find these economic principles of value. Regression, progression, substitution, contribution, and highest and best use. So these are all legitimate things, and I would study all the definitions. As a matter of fact, these 4 are pretty good. You want to know these if you can at least get through them. There's about 13, but if you can get through these, you're going to be sitting pretty for the most part, because these are the ones that typically go over. The biggest one, by the way, is substitution. So if you can at least remember that one, and highest and best used, you should be good to go. But progression and regression are based on the idea that properties' values are influenced by its surrounding properties, either raising or lowering it. So in a community where all of the other homes are at a certain value, your house, even if it's modest, tends to be around the same numbers as the other properties. Similar to that, other properties that are worth less, that are similar, or maybe even not similar, but in the same geographic location, will contribute to the way that your property will be valued. And they call that regression. So progression or regression. Question number 75. What type of leasehold exists when a tenant remains after expiration without the landlord's consent? Letter A, tenancy at sufferance. Letter B, tenancy for years. Letter C, tenancy at will. Letter D, periodic tenancy. And the answer? Letter A tenancy at sufferance. So these, again, are all four legitimate things. You will learn about these in the leasing section of your books. So you want to know the definitions of these four. They are very popular. Tenancy at sufferance, tenancy for the years, tenancy at will, and periodic tenancy. And so what type of leasehold exists when a tenant remains after the expiration? That's the operative phrase. That is all day tenancy at sufferance. Now, they also will call it a phrase, aka also known as a holdover tenant. So you want to know these for sure. You want to know that phrase holdover tenant, and then you want to know basic bits about the eviction process. You want to know, like, what is an actual eviction? What is a constructive eviction? These are all phrases that you're going to see, and you want to know these for that exam. So tenancy at sufferance all day long, also known as a holdover tenant. This is when they stay without the landlord's consent. All right. There was 25 more questions. Hopefully y'all are appreciating these and you're doing well, you're studying hard, and things are going great. If you're digging this stuff, please be sure to smash that like button and subscribe to our channel if you have not already. If you have, my gosh, thank you. If you haven't, thank you still for just tuning in and checking it out. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. We hope you're doing well. We will see you in part 4 coming up to wrap up our 100 question mega pack for 2026. See y'all soon.